Namaste, it's Brittany Shanae. Happy Tuesday. It is July 23rd, I think. Sorry, my days are kind of all over the place. Your girl just started yoga teacher training, and I'm really excited about starting out on this new journey. I have a pretty amazing group that I'm learning with, and a great teacher by the name of Stacy Berry here in the St. Louis area under Evolution Yoga and collaborating with the collective STL. So if you are looking for a yoga home, so to speak, I do encourage you looking up those channels. Um, Today I'm going to give you a tarot read, but it's not going to be anything fancy. No fancy spread. I really just want to dive into this animal spirit deck that I got, and I've had it for quite some time now, not quite a year, but it's something I'm still studying and learning about. So it definitely does incorporate the elements, but it's not your traditional tarot type of deck that sort of stems from the Rider and Waite imagery. This is all about animals and the elements and connecting to nature. However, what I find most intriguing about this is that it does incorporate information about different mythologies, but I've noticed that Hindu mythology is the one that it seems to kind of, I don't want to say dwell on, but one that kind of utilizes the most in terms of associations. And Hindu mythology is something I found that I've just been sort of drawn to. I don't know how or why, but I've just noticed that I've really been called to that. And so it's great to find a deck that kind of incorporates that in a way. The imagery of the cards are beautiful. I guess I'll just do a quick review of it just so you can see. But in some of them, they seem primarily black and white, but then they have these distinct color differences, and that's a good example of it. And that's the fire ant. These distinct color differences that emphasize, chakras. It talks a lot about chakras. If you're interested in learning about that, they have some great descriptions in the guide for this deck. So if you're looking for something to kind of lead you in a direction of learning how to incorporate what you read in tarot with your spiritual life, then this is a fantastic deck for that. It's a part of the Wild Unknown by Kim Kranz. And there is another Wild Unknown deck that I'm also interested in getting. But it also kind of steers away from your traditional Rider and Waite imagery, so to speak. So without further ado, I do want to get into the reading. It's just going to be a one card pull. The great thing about this deck is, although you can do spreads, and I have done spreads in the past, not commonly with this deck, but you can learn so much from just one card. It has a pretty thorough description of what each animal spirit means. And just because you pull an animal doesn't mean that that's your spirit and that's the only one that you can ever have, or you got different spirits, different days. It's more so just whatever spirit speaks to you, because remember, spirit is spirit, and that spirit, which is source, dwells in all things, and those different things can have different messages for you depending on what's going on. So this is a great way to help you learn how to interpret that. That way, if you ever go out into the world and you do find yourself running across the same animal or creature, then you're going, okay, well, spirit may be trying to tell me something, and with the help of this book and this deck, you can be guided with what that means for you out in the world if you don't have the tarot in hand. Okay? All right, so without further ado, for real this time, I'm going to burn my Palo Santo and clear my space, get my mind ready for this reading, and just try to put myself in the place of what is it that we need on this Tuesday, on this day where the last quarter moon is in Aries. At least here in the Midwest, the sky is currently blue and clear for the most part, which if you live in the Midwest is, you never know when you're going to actually get those. But just thinking in terms of gratitude and openness so that spirit can speak through the deck. And then making sure that I'm clear as well, and that nothing is blocking me. All right. So again, putting ourselves in the mindset of what is it that we need. Asking spirit, source, universe, God, universal consciousness, our ancestors, spirit guides, Agun, Aladumari, Just asking all of spirit that is within us and around us to speak through us. All right. So we have the deer, and I'll bring it a little bit closer. It's actually the deer in reverse. So the way reverse works in this particular deck is it could suggest an imbalance. And deer is an earth card. So the book is sectioned into earth, water, fire, air, and then spirit is the fifth element. And so when we're dealing with earth, usually we're thinking about something that's grounded. When it's in balance, it's some level of groundedness that we have, but with a certain consideration based off of the animal spirit that has been chosen. But when it's imbalanced, there's something that we could do in order to get ourselves rebalanced and refocused and regrounded. So according to the book here, the deer represents loving, intuitive, graceful, and the mother. The deer represents the feminine aspect of the earth energy. This energy is available to all creatures regardless of gender, but is especially potent in new parents. During the first few days, they are fully present, nurturing, and calm. Their inner beauty radiates and a sense of grace calms the room. A deer personality affects others in this way, drawing them toward a quiet tenderness. The deer card may appear when a birth or celebration of a new life draws near, or when a situation calls for absolute gentleness and compassion. When in balance, we are receptive, compassionate, and nurturing. When out of balance, we are concerned and protective. To bring into balance nature and being around children. All right, so just a quick story on why this is so significant to me. I'm currently dealing with a person in my life, not my husband, but someone who is actually of European descent, who made a comment to me, and I think in their mind that it wasn't harmful at all. But to me, I found it to be disrespectful. And honestly, in that moment, I didn't know how to react. But I chose professionalism over emotion, right? Although I think my energy was obvious that, that it didn't sit well with me. So as I'm trying to consult my intuition and spirit on how to move forward and what to do, and also my husband, I found that I keep coming back to this idea of compassion and forgiveness and nurturing. And that's really hard, okay, just to say the least. For one, I'm an Aries. So I'm full of masculine energy. I'm very in your face, blunt, and to the point. I have no problems telling you my real opinions and how I feel and how I think about things. But as I start off on this yoga journey, which I've been on this journey for a while personally, but now that I'm a student actually learning how to teach other people, I hold myself to a standard of, no, you don't get just to practice asana or the poses. But you really need to get these principles and start living that out if you want to be a yogi. Now, obviously, there's room for what that looks like for different people. But I know for me, in my work, it would behoove me to take this situation and really apply it to my yogi life to figure out, what's the best way to go about that. And there's a few things I could do. I could, retroactively just decide to, I'm mad at what you said and we got a problem now. Or I can go, you said something that was really disrespectful and I really think you need to be mindful about that in the future. Or I can do nothing and say nothing and go on about my day, either pretending like, hey, it's okay, or I guess another subcategory would be, that I think it's not okay, but I'm still not going to say anything. So I guess that's 4 different options I could do. But then those choices have reactions. And you never know. Then you have to keep choosing, like, okay, so do I continue down this path? Do I switch it up? Do I get angry later? And so that's something that I'm still working out in myself. So I find that this is coming at a great time. So if you yourself are finding yourself in a situation where You have the choice to forgive and act compassionately, or you can react emotionally. And it's really easy for us to emote, especially in the social media era. But I would say challenge yourself to act differently. If a teaching moment presents itself, I say take it if you feel compelled to teach. If you don't feel compelled to teach, at least I think it's better to, and I'm trying to get away from the language of saying being better or having a higher standard or being a bigger person, because we all fall short on some level at some point. Not just the people who do us wrong in the moment and then we have to figure out how to react to it, but sometimes we're on the other scope of that. And when you're on this yogic journey or on really a lot of spiritual journeys, you realize that people are not so different from each other. And while we tend to put greater emphasis on the people who damage us in some way, um, we do this to other people. There are plenty of times I know I've said things that have probably been offensive, not necessarily to this person, but just in general. And and maybe my intentions wasn't to be harmful, but I was harmful. And that's something I really had to tackle in my training just in the last week that we've been together is, truthfulness over harm, or no harm over truthfulness. And then what's the way in which I do that? Because again, that looks different for everybody. And then it's a case by case thing, right? Because not all scenarios are the same and not all solutions fit every scenario. So that's the journey that I'm on. And so I'm going to take this dear energy with me. And then also, I think it's interesting that they mentioned the mother. Because again, I mentioned how I'm in Aries. And right now, the moon is in Aries. And so there is some masculine energy in the air. People who are just kind of being blunt and just kind of just saying things, right? Being honest and forthcoming, even if it's harmful, even if it's not mindful, even if there's no intention behind it or not the proper intention, or just, they don't have harmful intentions. They were just being honest, right? But there's still a consequences. There's still a consequence for our action. So while that masculine energy is in the air, and masculine isn't necessarily equivalent to male, I just want to emphasize that. But then it brings up the mother. So life is about balance. And when we do have all of this confident male macho energy in the air, I just said not male, masculine energy in the air, it's important to bring that feminine energy into that to balance it. And that's something that we have to consciously do sometimes, some of us more than others. We have to be a little bit more conscious about being more nurturing and being more forgiving and being compassionate, because everyone out here is still growing. They're on their own part of their journey. And when we're impatient with them, we're also being impatient, unfair to ourselves, because think of the stress that you put on yourself when you're so busy being angry. And it's easy to be angry, sort of. It's easy to react because you don't have to be conscious. But in the long term, it really does yourself damage. Think about the number one reason why people have heart disease, especially people in my culture, is stress. And then we act out because of that stress by, either partaking in substances or overeating, or drinking, or, doing other things that is self-harming and maybe even harming to others. So while we may think, oh, well, I stood my ground and I spoke my piece, okay, but at what cost? What cost to yourself? What cost to the change that you really want to implement because you decided to emote instead of taking advantage of a teachable moment? And not all moments are teachable. Some things do require you, or at least probably would be better off if you walk away. But again, you must get in touch with your intuition and your own inner spirit in order to discern whether or not that's the best way to go forward. And just thinking a little bit more about the deer, deer are very subtle, but their presence demands a lot of attention, right? So there's something really interesting about a deer. When you see one, everyone stops and goes, oh, it's a deer. Even if you've seen a billion deer, you go, oh, look at the deer. There's just something so attractive about a deer. The way that they stand, their quietness, they're very what's the word? I don't know. In a way, they're kind of stealthy. Like you don't necessarily hear them, even when they've got big bodies. And then they move very quickly, very swiftly from one place to the next, to the dismay of some of our Midwest drivers because they like to cross the streets in some of the most inopportune times. And they have caused some pretty serious accidents too. Um, Different topic for another day. But, the way that they move together in family and also very quietly and stealthily, and they're able to get from one point to the next while they are beautiful and draw attention, it's usually always some sort of, I don't know, there's a stillness about a deer where they're on alert, they're focused, but they're always still enjoying their surroundings, and then they're moving quickly, but also there's something about it that seems like they just take it in. And I guess maybe that's that groundedness, that gracefulness that they represent. I guess the word that I'm looking for is gracefulness. Um, and we can affect other people by how we react. So again, that goes back to those teachable moments or those moments where we can emote or we can think twice and go, maybe I should say something else. Maybe I should make a different choice. And that's what it all boils down to is choice. So you can choose to be the person who can quiet the room, or you can choose to be the person who livens it. You can be the person who riles it up in a negative way. So just be mindful of how you show up in a space or in a situation with a person, or even how you just show up for yourself. Think about your inner dialogue. Think about your outer dialogue. Think about what you allow into your body that affects you and maybe changes whether or not you're more quiet or more livened or more riled up or calm or depressed or anxious or whatever the case may be, right? So again, I just want to go over the ways in which that we can bring things into balance. So when we're in balance, we're receptive, compassionate, and nurturing. And to bring things into balance when we're not, which is concerned and protective, right? So that's that reaction. Um, Nature and children. When we look at children, they don't seem to have a care in the world. Not really. When you're really looking at a healthy child, a child who has been nurtured properly, they tend to be very playful. They get into things without thinking twice. And there's just a freeness about them and a gracefulness about children, as as clumsy and crazy as they may seem. When kids are free flowing and just are allowed to have space to be children, there's just something so beautiful about the carefreeness that they're allowed to have. They're in a position to kind of soak in more of the world, which they're going to do naturally anyway as children. They're sponges. And it really doesn't stop until, you die, but it happens at an exponential rate. When you're a child, you can't help but suck everything in, and absorb experiences. And so they're very much grounded in the here and now, in the present, not the past really, and not so much the future, except for when they go, I want to be an adult because these other adults keep making me feel bad for being a kid. That's something adults need to work on. Allowing children to be children and then learning from them because they know so much. They are the closest to spirit. They're the ones who just came from the spirit realm to be a part of this life. And they serve as awesome reminders for who we not just used to be, but who we still can be, about old parts of ourselves that we can implement to be grounded and live in the here and now and be free and be graceful and be loving, and not so concerned or overprotective about ourselves. Experience has a way of making us want to protect ourselves, and that's totally understandable. A lot of us have been harmed. A lot of us have been lied to or betrayed. And so it's natural that we want to put a wall up or some guard around not just our bodies, but also our feelings and our thoughts, because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. And, while that's totally understandable, again, at what cost do we keep those walls up, that we never let anyone ever show us love, or we never get to experience the life around us and appreciate it and soak it all in? We don't get around to it. All right. So, and then nature, again, groundedness, seeing how the creatures of your space, just your space. You don't have to go to a forest or some place that's not near you to be able to appreciate nature. Even if you live in a concrete jungle, Go find a tree. Go find a patch of grass. Or just go find some fire ants or whatever the case may be for you. There's some living something around you that you're able to go observe and just learn from and appreciate. If you're on the West Coast, you may have better access to the mountains, or at least a park. Even if the park is in the middle of an inner city, of course, be careful. I don't know what the crime and all that stuff is like. Be careful about your surroundings, okay? Be smart, but go find a place where you can just be grounded in something, whether it's grass, whether it's a mountaintop, whether it's a hilltop, whether it's a body of water, a river, a stream, an ocean, a lake, whatever. As long as it's safe, go there and just observe and just be a part of the moment. Not just looking at it from the outside, looking in, but try to find yourself in it, in that moment, because you are nature at the end of the day. And it's when we try to resist nature is usually where we get the most pushback from life, because we keep trying to control things and hold on and be overly protective and concerned. Okay, so spend some time with children, spend some time in nature with different animals and creatures and bodies of water and parts of the earth. They're all here to teach us a lesson. There is life in everything. Okay. And that's the best way that we can connect to our source, our God, our spirit, our life force energy, whatever you want to call it. It's all in everything. All right. So I do hope that this reading and this message was helpful. It kind of went a little bit deeper than I expected, but I'm trying to learn to move when spirit says move, and I'm finding that beneficial to me. But if you have any questions, or if you just want to share your experience of maybe some place where you were lacking groundedness and maybe wasn't as grateful and this was helpful for you, or where maybe you were already sort of in the middle of making a change, or if this just helped bring something to the forefront of your brain to make that change, I would love to hear from you. Please like the video, especially if you made it this far. Thank you. Also, if you enjoy my other videos, I ask that you subscribe. I have about 11 followers and I'm loving it. I appreciate each and every one of you. You have to start somewhere, right? And so I'm super grateful for those of you who have tuned in and liked the video and subscribed to this channel. Do follow me on Instagram. You can find me at BrittneyShawnee. That's Brittany Shawnee. You can also follow my blog at www.brittneyshanae.com. Spelled the same way, one word. All right. I look forward to hearing from you all, and until next time, namaste.